Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Jeffrey Epstein Show. I'm your host, Bobbycapucci, and this is a morning update. Jeffrey Epstein collected scientists like I used to collect baseball cards. This dude had a whole collection of top-notch scientists that were eating right out of the palm of his hand. You name it, Jeffrey Epstein was involved with it seems like. From AI to transhumanism to everything in between, Jeffrey Epstein and his criminal enterprise was doling out the fazools to fund these scientists. And I have asked the question from the very beginning. Why? What was Jeffrey Epstein getting from these scientists while he was funding them? What sort of secret projects were these scientists working on? What sort of classified information did they possess? There is no other reason that I can see for Jeffrey Epstein to make such a concerted effort to have a menagerie of scientists on hand the way he did. It wasn't just because he was interested in these topics, in my opinion. It's because he knew he could gain something from it, get something out of it, and perhaps that was part of the plan put in place when this whole entire blackmail scheme was laid out. It wasn't just the politicians that they were looking to get under their thumb, right? These scientists who were working on these classified projects, I think that could be a very, very, very powerful form of capital for these people. Because remember, they have all the money in the world. What is most important to them is information. And that is the crux of the whole entire Jeffrey Epstein criminal organization. The enterprise was put into play to gather information, to build dossiers, and then to be able to control the people who were caught up in the scheme to do what the Epstein ring wants them to do, be it make laws that are easier for them to manipulate or run good, positive press for them, whatever it may be. It was always quid pro quo. Our article today is from the Daily Beast, and it was published in September of 2019, September 13th of 2019. The author of this piece is Blake Montgomery. Headline: Renowned MIT scientist defends Epstein. Victims were entirely willing. And just from the jump, it's enough to make you want to punch this guy in his head. I mean, really? Entirely willing, huh? I'm glad you were in there ahead and you know exactly what was going on and that you can make that leap and say that these girls, the underage girls as well, were entirely willing participants in Jeffrey Epstein's criminal enterprise. I mean, are you kidding me right now? This has to be filed under one of the most absurd statements uttered in this whole entire sordid affair. While MIT engages in damage control following revelations the university's media lab accepted millions of dollars in funding from Jeffrey Epstein, a renowned computer scientist at the university has fanned the flames by apparently going out of his way to defend the accused sex trafficker and child pornography in general. And this is the sort of thing that I've talked about for a very long time, even before this podcast. I don't care how many degrees you have, how many zeros are in your bank account, or how many stupid-ass charities that you have started. If you are running in this so-called club of billionaire elites, I am skeptical of you. Point blank, period. With normal people, average folks get arrested, I automatically default to them being innocent right away. Because guilty until proven innocent, right? We don't have all of the details and the facts or circumstantial evidence in normal cases. But when it comes to a case like this, when you have all of this evidence at your fingertips, all of this evidence in the public sphere, it is nobody's fault but your own if you don't realize what was occurring here, if you don't realize how deep the rot runs. And people like Richard Stallman, who defended Jeffrey Epstein's actions and defended child pornography in general, these are people who should have no place at the table. There is no place in society for people like this, in my opinion, because if you're defending it, well, I don't think it would be too much of a step for you to be participating in it. Richard Stallman has been hailed as one of the most influential computer scientists around today and honored with a slew of awards and honorary doctorates, but his eminence in the academic computer science community came into question Friday afternoon when purportedly leaked email excerpts showed him suggesting one of Epstein's alleged survivors was entirely willing. Can you imagine being that tone deaf? Can you imagine having that sort of mindset? That you would think that one of these girls is entirely willing when they're being coerced by somebody like Ghislaine Maxwell and Jeffrey Epstein after a lengthy grooming process. How in the world can a man with all of these higher education accolades, with all of these honorifics, with all of these degrees, with supposedly such a smart man, how can he be so damn dumb? An MIT engineering alum, Salam G. Gano, published a blog post calling for Stallman's removal from the university in light of his comments, along with excerpts from the email in which Stallman appeared to defend both Epstein and Marvin Minsky, a lauded cognitive scientist and founder of MIT's Artificial Intelligence Lab, who was accused of assaulting Virginia Roberts. And we've talked about Marvin Minsky's gross ass as well. You ever see a picture of this guy? Absolutely disgusting to think that he forced himself upon Virginia, or that Virginia was given to him as some sort of gift by Jeffrey Epstein. It is so disgusting the way that a lot of these academics circled the wagons to try and protect their friends and their colleagues. I have news for you, okay? For all of you out there listening, personal friends and otherwise, there is zero chance I would ever defend anyone who had behavior such as this. Zero chance. I don't understand how anyone can look in the mirror or take a look at the facts and come out and defend Jeffrey Epstein. It is just mind-boggling to me. But what it shows you is the mindset of the people that are defending him. It gives you a little bit of a look behind their eyelids and into their psyche. Roberts has alleged that sex offender and financier, pedophile, Epstein trafficked her to powerful men for sex, including Minsky, who died in 2016. She's alleged that Epstein and his alleged madam, co-conspirator, fellow child abuser, general all-around scumbag and bipedal serpent, Ghislaine Maxwell recruited her at Mar-a-Lago when she was 16 years old. I mean, it's mind-boggling that as a professor, a supposedly super uber intelligent guy, that you could look at the facts and you can't discern that Jeffrey Epstein was an absolute monster. Stallman wrote that the most plausible scenario for Roberts' accusations was that she was, in actuality, entirely willing. Vice's motherboard later reprinted the emails in full. Gano did not immediately respond to a request for comment. The most plausible scenario for the accusations is that she was actually entirely willing? That's the most plausible, huh? Considering what we know about Jeffrey Epstein, considering what happened in Palm Beach, considering his decades-long run of abusing and trafficking people. This is what you come up with. That it was... The most plausible scenario is that Virginia was willing, huh? How can you be so damn dumb, sir? Stallman also wrote in the email exchange that it is morally absurd to define rape in any way that depends on minor details, such as which country it was in, or whether the victim was 18 years old or 17. I mean, what? How do you come to that conclusion, okay? How do you get there? It's morally absurd to define rape in a way which depends on minor details? Look, these girls were trafficked against their will. They did not offer their consent. Therefore, they were raped. Okay? And all of Jeffrey Epstein's little science buddies that were there and that partook in the raping and witnessed any of it, guess what? Your day is coming. You're not going to be given any sort of protection. No one's going to offer you their umbrella. So we're going to keep digging, and we're going to keep putting the facts out there for the public to know. And all of you sick, disgusting bastards like Richard Stallman, you people have no place at the table. A deep dive into his writings shows this isn't the first time Stallman has expressed such questionable views, however. He has written dozens of posts on his personal website in favor of legalizing pedophilia and child pornography for more than 15 years. This is what we call fellow travelers, folks, okay? Epstein and Stallman were perfect for each other, obviously. If Stallman's writing about pedophilia and child pornography for more than 15 years, it's safe to say that what Jeffrey Epstein was doing was just normalized to him. That is just the way Mr. Stallman conducted himself. So why would he think what Epstein's up to is wrong? And it just goes into it deeper with all of these people, right? They're all the fellow travelers. Oh, I didn't know. And as they all get exposed, the next one in line, oh, I didn't know. Meanwhile, we know that you all knew. This child pornography might be a photo of yourself or your lover that the two of you shared. It might be an image of a sexually mature teenager that any normal adult would find attractive. What's heinous about having such a photo, Stallman wrote in 2011 on his personal site stallman.org, in an argument in favor of Congress limiting laptop searches at the U.S. border? Well, I don't know about the laptop searches at the U.S. border. I think that's for a different discussion, obviously, for a privacy discussion. But if you're using that as the genesis of your argument, that's where you're basing your argument out of. I don't think that it holds weight. I mean, so your whole entire argument, you're basing your whole entire argument on the fact that your computer might get searched at the border? What does that even mean? Basically, what Stallman is trying to say here, in my opinion, is, look, bro, I don't want you on my computer because I have pictures of young girls and young kids on my computer. It's basically what he's saying, in my opinion. Stallman currently works as a visiting scientist at MIT, according to the website of the university's Computer Science and Artificial Intelligence Lab, and as the president of the Free Software Foundation, which he founded in 1985. And again, it seems like every time we talk about these sick-ass scientists, they're all involved in like AI, transhumanism, and all this other weird-ass shit. I don't trust the scientific community as far as I can throw them, folks. I'll just be straight up about it. It is filled with liars and deceitful people. Just take a look at the WHO. Stallman has been seen as a pioneering computer scientist for decades, especially in his creation of and advocacy for new kinds of freely available software. Much of his work underpins modern computer science. He's worked at MIT on and off since the 1980s, and he spoke at a Microsoft Computer Science Research Center just last week. The Free Software Foundation, Microsoft, and MIT did not immediately respond to requests for comment on Stallman's remarks. Well, why would they? They don't want to get themselves dragged into that, right? I mean, what Stallman said is just beyond the pale. This is a man that should have to answer for what he said and answer for any sort of relationship he might have had with Jeffrey Epstein. If a guy's writing how child pornography is okay and all this other jazz is acceptable, well, I think that a deeper look into his relationship with Epstein most certainly is on tap. Stallman commented on the news of Epstein at length on his personal site. In April of this year, the programmer wrote of one story, "I disagree with some of what the article says about Epstein. Epstein is not, apparently, a pedophile since the people he raped seem to have all been post-pubertal. He preferred to call Epstein a serial rapist. What about the 13-year-old girl, the 11-year... I mean, really? Again, this is Stallman just trying to provide cover for his sick buddy, folks. That's all. Chafing at the idea of a legal age of consent was a favorite theme of his per his earlier blog posts. In 2003, he said, "I think that everyone age 14 or above ought to take part in sex, though not indiscriminately. Some people are ready earlier." I mean, really? It's now all of a sudden you're a biologist of the human condition, and you can make that leap and say that everybody should be having sex at 14? Really what you're trying to do is gaslight people and trying to move the narrative in that direction so that you could be involved in your sick-ass proclivities and not get in trouble for it. That's how it looks from the outside looking in there, Mr. Stallman. Alan Dirty Dershowitz, Mr. I Kept My Underpants On, one of the lawyers who helped broker Epstein's 2008 sweetheart plea deal, has also argued against the age of consent laws, calling statutory rape an outdated concept in a 1997 op-ed and suggesting on Twitter in July that a 16-year-old should have the constitutional right to consensual sex. I mean, look, the evidence is mounting against these people. This circumstantial evidence is damning. They wrote all of this stuff with their own mind. Nobody forced them to do it. Nobody held a gun to their heads and said, "Hey, write how 14-year-old girls should be able to have sex with whoever they want, and even younger if they're ready." I mean, really? Stallman was apparently also quite open about his ideas not only on age of consent laws, but also pedophilia. In 2006, he wrote, "I am skeptical of the claim that voluntary pedophilia harms children. The arguments that it causes harm seem to be based on cases which aren't voluntary, which are then stretched by parents who are horrified by the idea that their little baby is maturing. The law does not allow for voluntary pedophilia." What? Voluntary pedophilia? This guy should be thrown into a live volcano. What an absolute stain on the population of the world. I mean, voluntary pedophilia? I have news for you, buddy. If you're attracted to a child, okay, there is no hope for you. You're a sick bastard. There's no reform for you. Chemical castration and a long prison sentence. That's your only hope. In 2006, he said it wouldn't be so bad for an adult man who worked for the Department of Homeland Security to have sex with a 14-year-old, as one government employee had allegedly propositioned. Supposing she had voluntarily had sex with him, presuming that they had used a condom and suitable contraception, it would have done no harm to either of them. Oh, is that so? You see what they do, folks? This is what they do. These academics and these so-called intelligent elites, this is what they do. They want to normalize this. They want you to believe that it's okay for someone like Stallman to have relations with your 14 or 13-year-old daughter. That's really what it's about. When they start talking about, it's about a 17-year-old having a relationship with a 19-year-old, that's not what they're talking about. That's their cover, right? That's the Moat and Bailey strategy. They'll argue from a defense of a place of strength, right? And just argue that whole entire case, but really what's going on is they're talking about having sex with 14-year-olds and 12-year-olds. That's what they're getting at. That's what they really want. He reiterated this point in 2013. There is little evidence to justify the widespread assumption that willing participation in pedophilia hurts children. I can't even really read this, folks. This is like beyond the pale, disgusting. I don't understand how this guy has a job anywhere with these sorts of life thoughts. I mean, pedophilia doesn't hurt children? And how could it be willing pedophilia? Children can't consent. I don't even understand. I mean, wow. I usually have a lot to say, me and my fat yap, but I'm honestly, I don't know what to say about this. People within the tech industry knew of Stallman's remarks, chattering about his controversial claims in social networking sites and forums at least since last year, but his remarks about Epstein survivors reignited the debate Friday. The digital trail of Stallman's remarks and the whisper network surrounding them raised the question of whether MIT and the Free Software Foundation knew of his controversial statements. Of course they did. We've established that. The MIT, Harvard, all these groups, they knew what sort of serpents they were in bed with, and they didn't care. Because guess what? It seems like a majority of these high-profile scientists and academics that were running around with Jeffrey Epstein all lived the same way, had the same view of life. So why would anyone be shocked? Why would anyone be shocked? Stallman's permissive streak extended to all varieties of illegal sexual behavior. In 2003, he wrote a post about a judge who argued that repealing an Alabama anti-sodomy law would lead to the legalization of prostitution, adultery, necrophilia, bestiality, possession of child pornography, and even incest and pedophilia. The computer scientist responded, "All of these acts should be legal as long as no one is coerced. They are illegal only because of prejudice and narrow-mindedness." So again, that gives you a little bit of a look into the psyche of Richard Stallman. It shows you the kind of things that he thinks are okay, and it gives you an idea of just how sick and twisted this man is, obviously. Stallman extended his argument to say that internet censorship is worse than child pornography. What? Internet censorship is worse than child pornography? This dude must be on some of the greatest hallucinogenic drugs of all time. It's either that, or he is a sick-ass predator that must be watched. I mean, I don't even know what else to say about this dude. If he has these kinds of thoughts, folks, I'll tell you what. The term child pornography is dishonest. The censorship of it puts young lovers in direct danger of prosecution. Many published works are disgusting, but censorship is more so. No, it's not. I agree that censorship of information or books or anything like that is unacceptable. I don't believe in censorship when it comes to people's opinions and shit like that. Even this sick bastard's allowed to have his opinions, right? But that doesn't mean that you don't have to answer for that nonsense, that you don't have to answer for these sort of sick-ass, disgusting opinions. And this man obviously has plenty of them, and he's been outspoken about them. What, MIT didn't know that they had this kind of guy in their midst? Is it any shock that a guy like this would be, hanging out with Epstein, circling the wagons for Epstein, running cover fire for Epstein? And in 2011, even when it is uncontroversial to call the subject depicted a child, that is no excuse for censorship. Having a photo or drawing does not hurt anyone. So, and if you or I think it is disgusting, that is no excuse for censorship. It's illegal, you dumb idiot, okay? Stay away from the kids. Stay away from the children. Mr. Stallman. I can't even believe that this guy hasn't gotten more play for these statements. I mean, this is all the way back in 2019 this guy made these statements. It is unconscionable, in my opinion, that he has any sort of place within a school, around girls, or young kids. I mean, really? MIT has been rocked in recent weeks by scandals arising from its connections to Epstein. The director of the vaunted MIT Media Lab, Joy Ito, resigned after the New Yorker reported he accepted more money from Epstein than he disclosed, and that he had concealed the donations from both the university and the public. The president of MIT, L. Raphael Reif, ordered an independent investigation which revealed that he, too, had taken part in hiding Epstein's donations. Reif is facing calls to step down after acknowledging that the Media Lab accepted funds from Epstein long after his 2008 conviction for soliciting a minor for prostitution, with Reif's own signature found on a 2012 note thanking Epstein for his generosity to the university. And we covered all of that previously, the MIT connection, them taking money from him, Epstein having pretty much run of the facility. And again, I asked then the same question I will ask now. What was Jeffrey Epstein doing with all of this information that he was collecting from his menagerie of scientists? Where did this confidential information go? Who did he give it to? And why? But one thing is for certain. Anybody who thinks like Mr. Stallman here, anybody who's defending Jeffrey Epstein and saying that pedophilia should basically be normalized, is somebody that I most certainly would not want anywhere around my kids at college. If you'd like to contact me, you can do that at bobbycapucci@protonmail.com. That's BOBBYCAPUCCI@protonmail.com. You can also find me on that giant, festering, oozing cesspool of Twitter at BOBBY_CAPUCCI. All of the links that go with this episode can be found in the description box. All right, everybody, we'll be back later on.